Hello. Equity research has always been an area that fascinates almost every finance professional, be it a chartered accountant, an MBA, or CFA. I thought it would be worthwhile to call my very successful junior from school, Bhupendra Tiwari. So he is my junior from school, from college. He did his MBA from IBS Hyderabad. And I'm mentioning that specifically because it is contrary to that popular notion that it is only the hallowed words of an XLRI or an IM that can make you successful in the world of financial services such as equity research. So Bhupendra is also a CA inter, by the way. So he cleared CA IPCC, did some 8.5 months of articleship, and all you do is ticking is something that he was not very happy with. In that's typically how audit boils down, vouching verification in the initial period. So now he is AVP research at ICICI Securities, India's listed financial services player. So welcome, Bhupendra. It's been a long introduction from my end. So thank you for sparing time out. I'll come straight away into the questions. Okay. So one thing
Sure, sure.
about Bhupendra as a person, which the world does not know. So it's going to be a breaking news on today's episode on this channel.
Not a breaking form, but yes, apart from the report writing that I do write something away from that. So basically, whatever I observe, whatever has happened in my life, so I've been documenting things that I've observed, things that has happened with me, things that I like, my investments and all those things. So I've been writing it. So in a way, yes, I'm a closet writer, if you can call it.
And when are we expecting that book now?
Yeah, I should get some time, right? At least a month break, and this market doesn't seem to allow me that, right?
This market is on a roll. I do not understand. In spite of COVID, everywhere there is gloom, but Bank Nifty and Nifty in general. I mean, that's a separate discussion. So,
Yeah.
Bhupendra, your dad is an accomplished astrologer, and so he advises the who's in Calcutta on matters related to the planets, the stars, and the suns. Your cousin brothers are also, one of your cousin brother is also a major astrologer in Jharkhand. Didn't it ever occur to you that instead of commerce, let's jump into the family forte, that is the planets and how they impact you? I mean,
Yes.
yes, in a way you are also an astrologer now because you are predicting share prices, but yeah, the more conventional form of astrology perhaps.
Yeah, I like the analogy of astrology with equity research. I think yes, it does connect it. But yeah, coming to that astrology part of it, I think astrology was always there in our family. My grandfather knew it, and he never, did it for as a profession, but he taught it to his son and grandson. That's my cousin. So my father, who was also not an astrologer and who was basically a normal person working in a purchase department of a Bangalore company, he happened to kind of see the horoscope of his friends, and some of his predictions came out, and he just started, and voila, he knew that he was there, and he's been practicing for the last 20 odd years. For me, actually, I knew that yes, it's there, but I think I was more of a person who wanted to get into science, do engineering, like my cousins did. They're an IITian, so that's where I wanted to be. But yeah, things changed, and one thing led to another, and here I'm a commerce grad, post grad, and doing equity research.
Predicting share prices, as I would tell it. So
Yes.
now going back to your college days, you had a very good pedigree in terms of your ISC from Don Bosco Lilwa, and then Xavier's happened, CA IPCC happened. But then in terms of an MBA, did you have second thoughts about joining IBS? I'm asking this because a lot of people would have rankings. So they kind of rank these schools on the basis of placements and this and that. So was this your first choice? Did you ever thought that, okay, let me drop another year and wait for the more storied institutions like the IIMs, XLRI, FMS, etc.?
Yeah, so my transition, my liking towards MBA, let's put it that way, happened when I was doing this CA articleship. I just realized that I was not part of that theme, where I could check vouchers, do audit, and I was just tired of it. I wanted to do something in finance, but not something in audit. So that scared me away. Although I do regret it. I wish I could have done it. And
Why do you
CS
regret that?
yeah, I think the depth of knowledge that a chartered accountant has, and my interaction
Ah,
tells me, is much more than an MBA would. MBA gives you a personality, but the knowledge is given by the chartered
oh,
accountancy.
that's
So
a
I,
great
I
news for a lot of people watching this channel because I have a lot of people from the CA community. So then what happened? So you decided to drop CA
yeah,
and get.
so I decided to drop CA. I started preparing for my MBA entrance, and there's something called destiny, I would say. So I had this very bad accident, and it happened in fateful night,
A
Diwali
bike
night.
accident? You driving a
No,
bike or something?
no, my friend was driving a car, and I was there at the back seat, and he bumped into a electricity pole, and then
Oh
I
my
was pushed to
God.
that front. So let's put it that way, that it just ensured that I was not going to give that cat this year and that year, and I was hospitalized and all those things. So I had to cling on to those non-cat
Yeah.
examinations.
Okay.
Another thing led to another. That was something that I was banking on. Got 98 odd percentile. Couldn't get XLRI. Then Symbiosis was where I was waitlisted in terms of the after interviews, and then there was this call from IBS also. One more call from NM and all those things. And some finally, what I had was one confirmed offer from IBS, and a willingness. Whether I had to take a call that I would waste 1 year and maybe give it another go, or maybe just try my luck. I did, and so here it is.
And how did ICICI Securities come to campus on your
Yeah,
college?
so that's an interesting thing. So ICICI Securities, you would never come to our campus. Basically, ICICI Bank used to come. ICICI, so our HOR is also a pass out from ICFI, and he, like all the seniors of the colleges, try to help their fraternity and see how if they can get their college mates to. And then he came there. I was one of the 3-4 guys who were chosen. He also came once more, I guess, in 2011 or 12. But that's it. I think that was pure luck. I was there and I got through. And that surprisingly, that was the only 3-4 offers that we had of front end equity research. So yes.
Yeah, so getting into front-end equity research is big, boss. Even from the IMs, there are very few people who might as well get into a role that you get. And did CA Inter also help you then?
Yes, I think the concept of FM, I don't know the terminology, I don't remember it, right? But the way they teach, the depth of DCF and everything that they teach, I think you are quite ready with the ratios and DCF and
Yes.
everything compared to what we teach, I learned in MBA. So basically,
Yeah.
you're quite sure about financial statement, you're quite sure about the ratio, and that gives you an edge. And I think a CA, whenever you talk of numbers, a CA will always trump any other professional degree,
Yeah,
financial
that
professional.
is. So it kind of, to summarize, it kind of helped you also crack the interviews because ICICI Securities, when they would have come on campus, they would also be spoiled for choice, right? Because they're offering front-end equity research. And here was Bhupendra Tiwari. Because he was also CA Inter, he would have been able to articulate much better his command over DCF, financial ratios, and they would have walked home, boss, this is the guy I want to recruit.
Yes, in a way, it did help. I think, and that's why I said in at this beginning that I regret not completing that CA part
Ah,
of
you
it.
can always
Once
do that. We recently interviewed someone who cleared CA at the age of 66. So you are probably just 34.
time should permit, right?
Yeah. No, no. So you'll retire also. No, you're earning by, by the mullahs raking in the ones. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me one thing. So once you enter this equity research world, and I'm sure it's a very competitive world, because there are so many analysts all vying for attention in the industry. Do things like B school brand matters? Does it like the long hours at work? Your English matters because report writing skills also would have come into a picture. Those stellar
Yes.
one-liners which grab headlines. So
No,
then,
I'll tell you. Tell you a secret about those stellar one-liners. There's a team of editors, typically at least one or two editor in any equity research team, and those guys are good. Those guys are good. Those they are the ones who articulate well. They are the ones who give that edge. So I'll give it to them.
So what really made you stand out that you spent a decade in equity research and risen through the ranks, B school branding, your
I
you had
think
a missionary schooling college, so very good English skills. I know you are very outgoing in nature also, or just sheer luck. What?
I think, see, for me or for any equity research guys, I think when they begin their career, I think they identify with the things that you have to do. So, the equity research profile requires you to have, apart from the Excel skills, which I actually consider is very important, the writing part of it, something that if you have, can you create a big picture out of anything that you are seeing? Do you understand? Do you want to understand what exactly is the process? Do you want to understand how the company earns their revenue, how they earn it, how do they spend it, what is the capex thing, and all those things? Apart from that pure number of it, your understanding of industry, your understanding of economy, your liking for how businesses grow big, all those things take into factor. I was lucky to look into these all 4 5 sectors, and that I think that was one of the motivation that kept me going at one place, because I was getting what people would want to get, that is different sector exposure to different sector and diversified kind of portfolio, if like we call it. So
Yes.
that's what it is. One sector doesn't work, the other one is working, keeping me busy and relevant, right?
So, like, you look at real estate, you look at mid caps, telecom and media, and infrastructure space. So, when you talk to a lot of promoters, so you talked about seeing the big picture. So, maybe also testing them in corporate governance, apart from what the balance sheet also tells. So, what is your entire approach? How do you really identify that multi-bagger whose prediction is going to make you really successful?
I think so for example, when we talk to the companies, I think the best thing about fundamental research that we do is that we have been assigned a sector. So we know that we have to just identify the segments of the sector which are going to do well and which we believe. Then we identify, go and look at the leaders, with the ones who are doing good, or the challengers. It can be either thing. It happens. So for example, I mean, you can see the in a certain industry leaders tend to do more well, and then their time comes that the challenges kind of work. And then we identify, we go and meet the management. The basic idea is to understand how do they see themselves 5 to 10 years down the line, what exactly is their growth plan, how are they going to do their capital allocation. I think this is very underrated aspect of business, that is capital allocation. I think we the street gets swayed away by companies saying that we're going to do this and get into 5 businesses. For analysts like me, I would rather see that what are you going to do things where you are really good at. Can you just scale it up? Can you do something? Can you enhance your offering? How's your how are you doing compared to the competitor that is coming up and giving you challenges? All those things, rather than looking run of the mill item where obviously an established companies would definitely be doing well. So basically you have to kind of ask them to ask these tough questions and how they go about it, right?
And it's also like, let's suppose if you're talking about telecom, so is it like you also talk to distributors, let's say if in remote district of Jharkhand, and say ki where are the recharges happening, kiska tower acha hai, call drop ho raha hai ki nahi, something
Yes,
like
yes. I think the background part, research part is pretty important. So, for example, say for example, any sector now, not only telecom. I'll give you the more importance is there basically for sectors like say cement, where you have to get understand how the pricing is going on the different part of the country, because that data is now not released beforehand. And once and if you kind of don't track those kind of distributor data, or the steel prices, or whatever is happening at the real estate thing, how the volumes are being sold, then if you don't track those things, you will get only exposed data, and the price action would already been have would have happened. So as an analyst, your idea is to understand what's exactly happening right now, what is actually happening at the customer end, as the client end, at the vendor end of a company, everything. And then maybe if something is cooking well for the company or cooking bad, you have to take a decision whether to buy the stock or sell it, or whatever it is. So that's an integral part of an equity research. I think apart from the secondary research that we do, the primary scuttlebutt is an integral part of equity research.
And that helps you get contrarian views as well, because the whole market might be bullish about something, but that, hey, this is the story, it's going to tumble upside down in 6 months from now. Have
Yes,
such instances also happened through primary research that you're talking about?
Yes, we have kind of seen. So we've got the benefit of working with a big bank group. So we also get some sense how the lenders see these companies. We also, like I said, do the scuttlebutt part of it. We also talk to the clients part of it, customer part of it, and of course you'll see there's one more part that the traditional companies normally believe in giving in guidances, and how they are actually going, how the stance is changing. Are they kind of pushing their targets to the next quarters and all, and showing good picture at the beginning of the year or when the things are going, and then giving you shock value? All those things, everything goes into that whole process of equity research.
Yeah, and I think recently in one of my courses, I also covered quality of financial accounting, because the ratios interrelated. For example, operating cash flow to EBITDA as a ratio will also tell you whether the company is actually juggling with numbers or really generating cash. Or these also things that you look at in equity research?
Yes, I think it's very clear. If you look at the market also, there are a lot of companies where when you see the P&L, everything looks rosy, everything is great. They're growing at 30-40% earnings, and then the devil is somewhere in the balance sheet and the cash flows. So you see that if a person is making say 100 rupee in EBITDA, that EBITDA should actually convert into say 90 rupees, even if it's a great
Absolutely.
thing. I think in terms of cash flows, if now that is showing as 30 rupees, 40 rupees, and then you say kind of see who are the quality of the customer. Are the debtors really debtors? Is the sales really the sales? And all those questions coming in, and you just starting. And we have seen the history of this market. I think a leading IT company did it a decade back,
Satyam.
something. Yeah. So I think you have to be cautious. And I think even if somebody doesn't declare, you kind of get a sense from those kind of ratios, thus from these kind of observations, that there is something astray in this company. So we should stay away from that.
All right. And is it also like conversations with the promoters or the investor relations team tells you that integrity is not really up to the mark and this company's demise is imminent? It's going to happen maybe sooner or the later. Have corporate governance issues come up in course of conversations in your equity research career?
Yes, I would say that I have been observer of all those things, having seen this sector which has faced the challenges, especially infra, real estate part of it.
Yeah.
I have encountered instances where the commentary of the management kind of showed that they were not doing the required job of ethics and all those things. And the writing is on the wall. Those companies are now no longer relevant. Actually, they've kind of closed down their businesses and all those things. That has happened over the last 10 years, and that the street has seen. So yes, we've been you have to be very important thing as an analyst here is that you have to identify those companies and kind of make a decision that yes, we're not going to cover those companies, we're not going to advise those companies. Make sure that these mistakes don't happen, because sometimes it's powerful also, because a lot of companies are very powerful, they have a pedigree. So
Yes.
but you got to understand that there is the 5,000 plus companies listed on the bourses.
Yes.
And not everything is a buy thing. So if you have that big picture clear, I say for example I cover 40 companies. I cannot give, I don't see all 40s as buys, right? It can be 8 or 10 as buys. But yes, that choosing, picking, ensuring that the bad or the weak governance companies shouldn't be there, part of your company shouldn't be advising the clients, or selling out a note saying that we do not understand the company, there are some of the disclosure issues or whatever issues that happens with the companies, and putting across your messages in an indirect way, if I could say so.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to take a call that, yeah, I'm dropping coverage since I'm not very
Yes.
comfortable through the meeting.
Yes, and it happens. I think if you see the processes of dropping coverage, and I think a lot of these corporate kind of frauds have happened also, the big ones and the small ones. And you'll see that the idea is to identify it beforehand, before it becomes a bigger mess, that the whole capital is eroded. So, but yes, that's the process. So every year you have to kind of recheck your coverage. What are we looking at? Is it worth you know wasting your resource, rather
Yeah,
utilizing your
my hard-earned
utility?
money. So people are
Yes,
going to
yes,
rely on your research. Okay,
yes.
Bhupinder, one question which I had was that, so as an analyst, have you actually seen the trend ahead of the times as you were talking about the big picture? So, like say, a PVR and an Inox permeating into our life. So I know COVID has really turned tables for them, or maybe this global appetite for Geo. I mean, everyone wants to have a slice of Geo. So were these trends that by any stretch of imagination you could predict ahead of the curve?
I
So
think
be honest.
the best researches that happen is based on the observation that happens in your daily life.
Yes.
So, for example, for somebody like me who was there in a metropolitan city like Mumbai, and I was there as a bachelor also, I would see that I was spending most of my weekends watching a movies. The idea was not to watch a movie. The idea was to see, spend some time, go out, and that's how you do it. Socializing is part of it. No, not even when I married, I think that this happened. I saw that uncles and everybody want to spend time out, and this is where you don't even think about wasting those $250 on those popcorns and all those things. So I thought that I just realized. So when I got that sector, I think luckily or unluckily it happened, and we were PVR and all those companies happened to be our buy, and then this story started. Similarly, I think yes, the mistakes also happen, and I think the intensity of that transition of this to OTT, people spending, they are now kind of checking a lot of you know they're checking a lot of content, testing a lot of content online now. So I think
Yeah.
that there
So
are
there are
challenges.
companies which are skipping a PVR and an Inox release. They are launching
Yes,
directly on an
yes.
Amazon
So
Prime.
so so those are the things also you see. So basically, research is about preempting the good things as well as the bad things, the risks. So that gives you a point of good things. If you are preempting a good thing, it gives you a buy call. If you are preempting something change in structure of the industry which is not favorable to it, you can it gives you an exit point. You should have to realize and exit that stock. So similarly, you got to understand. So for example, similarly in telecom, you see, it was always a 10-player market, and then pricing was an issue, and then big guy comes, a lot of companies close down. It's a 3-player market, and then you think that still the big guy will kill everybody, and then the three players are surviving, and then the price hike happens, and then the structure improves, and then there's this global demand and global idea that yes, if you have to play consumerism in a market like India, you have to look at Indian telecom, right? So because that's where you'll see the data usage, the cloud, the OTT, the 5G's penetration and
So much
everything,
is
and
happening in this sector. Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
and the fact that now people are so called, we have to see everything ex China if we have to invest, because that's the scenario. So India is in a strong footing, huge population, industry structure is good. So that's just about it, I think. And it is seen, you see the kind of investments the people are talking about, and all those global giants are running for this one a piece of cake.
Yeah, so Google into Vodafone Idea, Facebook into Geo. I mean, these are exciting times for the sectors that you track. So Bhupendra, tell me, like, what's your daily life? When do you start your day? Is it like 7, 8 o'clock where you have a team call before the market opens, and then the day ends 3:30 officially the market ends, and then you start your calls maybe. So how's your
Okay.
typical day? What do you do?
All right. So what we do is we start our day with a morning meeting. Basically, it's a team meeting where our fundamental analysts, the technical and derivative analysts, they discuss the various developments that has happened overnight, or the over the last one day. Anything of importance which will have an implication on the share price or in the valuation part, and the technical and derivative give their own changes. Now here, the structure is also, the idea is such that say for example in a company, that we tend to discuss at least few companies in a week, where we see interesting things happening, not based on news, but based on development or the whatever attractiveness of the price or whatever. And we discuss and we see that can we look at these opportunities as a top bet for the next year or something. And those stock ideas generation happens. So it can be companies which are already under coverage, it can be companies which we want to bring under coverage, it can also be a company which we want to drop. So those discussions happen, and then we come back, have a breakfast, and then our day starts. Typically, see, for a fundamental analyst, you don't have any relation to what's happening in the stock prices per se. Yes, the news is something that you have to track, but then you are back to it. So if you are doing an initiation, you have to start the basic things. So basically, you start with reading the annual reports, getting all those historical data, all those management commentaries, and has to be there. Do the industry reading, the peer readings, then ask for an appointment with the management. Talk to somebody in the industry if you have a contact with industry body. Then once you do it, prepare the model, write the report, scuttlebutt, like I said, with the customer, client, and all those things. And then that scuttlebutt is a regular process. For example, if I have a coverage on, say, for example, telecom companies, I'll have to kind of continuously talk about the distributors and all those things. So this is the IC part of it. And then when you make that IC report, you have to present it to the whole team. And they have their own questions. They ask you why this multiple and why, what is so
Yeah,
good
they
about
will
this
play devil's
business.
advocate.
Yes. And why this against this, and that's a good way. And if you kind of if that is approved through the team, and then the release happens, and then the usual updates. So in a result season, it will be such that you'll have a conference call of a company, you'll have to write the report and all those things, all these things will happen. But in a normal day, you'll have to focus on the industry development, the company initiation, and all those things, and any new ideas that you can generate.
All right. And Bhupender, like you are a sell side analyst, how difficult is this life as compared to a buy side analyst in case there is a difference? Are there differences in rewards also, or typically like you give advice, buy side invest on the basis of that advice? So probably they have a larger stake in that whole thing, and they are good.
Yes,
So your just
I
target
call
price
it a,
can go wrong. Their alpha is
yes,
going to get destroyed.
true, true. I think they have a skin in the game, as I would like to call it. So basically, they are the ones whose funds are buying those stocks, and I think they are responsible. And as we know, daily NAV happens for those fund levels, and one underperformance or one mistake can bring you down. So they, apart from the research part of it, which we also kind of support them, they also do that industry research. They also have to do this, executing that buying and selling and ensuring, is it the right time to exit, or is it the right time to kind of buy more, average more, and all those decisions is something that they have to take. For me, it's like I have done the industry research, I write a report, anything happens, any update, I give you, right? But execution part is, so I think their job is more important. Let's put it more difficult, more rewarding, of course, has to be. And then that's that they have the actual career progression that everybody aspires for. A buy side analyst kind of turns into a buy side fund manager, and then they are the ones who graduate into CIOs and all those things. So yes, buy side is something which is very, very, very tough, but yes, very, very rewarding and very, very important.
And have you seen people moving from sell side, starting their careers with sell side, and then eventually moving to buy side?
Yes, it happens. So basically, if a sell side analyst has been consistently giving a good kind of a stock pickings, so his clients itself, the clients who listen to them, and they are the ones who kind of believe that they can contribute more in terms of execution also, because the stock picking ability is already there in that guy. So yes, the street has seen a lot of sell side analysts graduating to buy side analysts, and it regularly happens, keep happening, and then to that ultimate dream. Yeah. And so transition, yeah,
That is
it's there in
possible.
there.
That's possible.
Yes.
Now, is like, arriving at a number, let's say 567 as the target price, is that derived to the financial model? Are those skill sets also very much in question? So do you test them at the interview stage? Do you ask candidates to actually prepare a financial model, or, you just give them 2 hours and say, okay, give me a DCF of this company basis this assumptions. So
Yes,
all these things also happen.
I think financial modeling is one of the basic filter when we would maybe recruit a fresher. I think so. For example, he has to understand what exactly is to work in an Excel model, what is a revenue sheet, how is the cost projections are done. If you understand what is cash flows and how that is driven by how the capex and all those scheduling happens, and debt scheduling, debt repayment, and all those scheduling, DCF valuations, and all those things. So this is a basic thing that we look into a fresher. That is a basic requirement of our profession, I would say. And of course, the other thing happens in terms of report writing and all those things. But I think financial modeling is the core and the crux of equity research. So somebody who has an aspiration to get there, they have to be very good at financial modeling.
Absolutely. And in terms of, because you give a lot of predictions, some will go right, some will go wrong. And, the human psyche is that people forget the goals you saved. They remember the ones you missed, right? So it's like
Yes.
a bouquets and brickbats, but you will not get the bouquets, but more of brickbats. And people are going
Yes.
to say, hey, your target price went off and I lost my money. So how do you cope up with that kind of, it's a mix. Obviously, it's always going to be a mix, but the bad negatives are going to be highlighted more probably from the client side because they're paying you, right?
Yes, of course. I think they're paying there, and their skin is there in the game, and they have lost money, and they have the rights to kind of ask questions. The idea is to, for an analyst, is to kind of forget, because this is a part of our job. You give predictions and target prices, and they go wrong. To give you a perspective, I think the best investors in the world have the hit ratio of 30-40+%. They say is a good enough good hit ratio to make good money. The point is that yes, people have to be right in the allocation. This is not where my role comes in, but yes, we kind of do it right also. So for example, if somebody some stock is a risk capital kind of a call, we'll have to kind of mention that this is a risk capital call, so allocation cannot be very high on that scenario. So all those things happen. But yes, when we get big bats, it's we have to go back and see in the process where it went wrong, so that it doesn't happen again. Because see, these mistakes will happen, but we'll have to kind of cut down on the occurrences of that mistakes, right?
So, why I'm talking about all this is also because, someone as a youngster would feel that, Arey bhai, ye to ek swarg lok hai. Just enter there, write some reports, and you get a lot of money. But, I'm just trying to take people through the stress and the ups and downs of your daily life.
It is, it
Now,
is, it is,
huh?
it is. I agree with you.
Yeah, and now I'll take you through a different thing. So you're a CFA charter holder. And
Yes.
so this CFA with its immense knowledge fits perfectly well into your scheme of things because you write yourself as a charter holder on your equity research reports. Now consider a 22-year-old kid on the block, just freshly graduated, shows experience basis his father's investments. Does that standalone CFA degree, can it become a vehicle for someone's entry into this coveted world of investment banking or equity research? So what's your take on that? Because there's a lot of commercial dimension also to this. It's the entire value chain in terms of that commercial coaching and all. So youngsters, they would want an objective view from this one.
I think see, when we look at Indian market, see, although CFA is a globally accepted degree, and I think most of the capital market participants in the developed worlds, they prefer to have a CFA as their employee. So I think I understand that. But coming on to the Indian market, I think traditionally, or for that matter, the two degrees which are understood as the primary finance degree in India is, one is the chartered accountancy, and second the MBA finance. And basically that also in our capital markets, the equity research market, I think the big B schools are the ones which are given first preference. Having said that, I think CFA is a good add-on degree. So standalone degree is something. So right now what's happening and that's my observation, that there is a rush of the youngsters doing CFA, considering that as a primary degree that will lead them to equity research. Equity research is never about if it's not backed by your reading, your passion in the stock market, your understanding of company, and understanding, you not understanding a financial modeling, you haven't seen a sector or a company. So I think that's something, even with a CFA charter, nothing would help, because the charter works, like you said, here will not be relevant. Secondly, I think you have to look at the number of people who are doing it and all those things. So economic law of demand and supply, right? So if the supply kind of increases, the demand will kind of show a very low demand percentages in terms of the total supply. So that's what will happen. I think CFA is a good degree. I think as a secondary it works pretty well. As a primary, I don't think in the market it works the
And
way.
you really pointed out this Indian markets thing well, because I had a recent post once the CFA results came out. In India, people have converted even CFA into a race of first attempt and 90 percentile. And at the age of 21, I mean, we are Indians, there are so much supply dynamics, demand dynamics. And I think, as you rightly said, equity research, your team also would be, Bhupender, like 4 or 5 people probably. It's not like there are 30 accountants in the factory, so all of them can be engaged. It's not like that, right? So most of the,
No.
it will always be
It's
small
a
teams.
healthy. Yes, it's a very small. Normally, research team is very small, so our fundamental teams are pretty. I think the team always have a technical team, 3-4 technical member team, and derivative member team. And fundamental would be the number of sectors that you see. So, for example, if we have a wide coverage, so the numbers might be more. A lot of companies are there who only look at large caps. Because their requirement is such that they cannot their clients do not invest in companies which, say for example, less than $1 billion. So then that universe shrinks, so you don't require so many analysts to look at that small
Absolutely. So
number.
this
Yes,
demand side also, you have a very limited number. See, how many brokerage houses in India?
I think we have brokerage houses, but the respectable ones are limited. I think when we say where
Maybe a few
in tier
dozens.
one, yeah, it'll be few dozen which will be tier one, tier two, which matter. So that will be few
which
dozen.
can
Not even few dozen. It's actually one or less than a 2 dozen, I would say.
which really offer you handsome salaries, a good career path in terms of, see, because brokers, so there'll be dime a dozen, but the
Yes.
ones which really can give you respectable career. So that's why, this industry is actually difficult to get into. So then brings me to my next question. As a CFA, a CA, as an MBA, or maybe a master's in something, how do I get into equity research? Or if I, for example, get into a KPO of an equity research company like a CRISIL, and I do offshore research for Credit Suisse in Europe, so can I get into mainstream in Indian markets later? How does this whole dynamic work?
All right. So basically, yes, KPO transition from KPO to a normal is possible. So what happens is that a lot of the ones, the guys who are working with a particular sectors, they get a hang of that sector, and sector dynamics basically are typically same. So, for example, if you are tracking a power sector in Europe, you understand how power plant work, right? You have to basically understand what are the cost metrics and all those things, and then and if you are doing very good in reading and part of the Indian part of that business, I think brokerage houses do upgrade them to their uh,
That's
front
good.
end front end research. That is first part of it. Typically in India, the recruitment of equity research is done at a college level for freshers. All those campus placements are the one. Yes, I think few placement is done for the chartered accountancy. So like I said, the primary degree of entry into CA happens to be these two. Of course, somebody with a combination of CFA with either of the two is something which gives you an edge. Of course it gives you an edge,
Definitely,
but
CFA is
here
an
also,
icing on the cake, but yeah, cake has to be there.
yeah, the cake has to be there, and like I said, the cake has, and it will be. So somebody who wants to get into it, first of all, he has to I always ask them that there are kids who kind of ping us on LinkedIn, and they ask us what to do, what that they are a research enthusiast and all those things. I just tell them that if you want to understand, if you are research enthusiast, research a sector. You can, so for example, if you want to research say for example IT sector, look at the two leaders which are there in India, read their 10-year annual reports, understand their revenue model, understand their cost models, read industry report, NASCOM, and all those reports. And trust me, the process, when I said it very easily, but this will take, say, a few months to create a hang of it. At least you'll have a view on a sector. At least you'll understand what exactly how the business is done. And and then if you go to an interview, I think you'll be appreciated more rather than having a no interest in that business part of that thing, or for that matter, not even upgrading your financial modeling skills. So there are a lot of kids who don't know financial modeling, or they can read up stuff that they read online, but they don't understand what is business revenue model, what is how cost projection is done, what is cash flow, how it's driven. So all these elements are there. I think I always tell that those guys to first of all bring work on the base, which is the financial modeling. Second comes your reading into, you take up any sector, any company. See, you will be given a sector or a company based on whatever position is available. You can't pick and choose. You can't be a fresher and say that I want to research, say, FMCG. There has to be a position for that, right? So basically, but you can say that yes, I have researched a company this way. I know financial modeling. I have made I even advise them to make a sample research report, make a model, make a sample research report. Take that as your CV. Even if you don't carry your CV, if you carry that research report and you can explain your thought process, I think that's it for you. There, you'll be
Wow.
there.
That's a great method. So you don't come across as a kid who just wants to get into this industry, because the
Yes,
old saying goes, if wishes were horses, only beggars would be riding them.
yes,
So
yes.
now you
You
substantiate.
that's what it is. And I've seen in my company itself, I think one or two people have done that. They have joined us by showcasing these things. And
Wow.
this is something out of the way. They just sent their model and this and if we can discuss. And they did not ask for an interview. They said, I have made this model, if you could discuss. We discussed and we liked those guys and they were recruited.
Oh,
So yeah, so that's how it is. And I think that's what I will tell the young professionals who want to get into research. If you want to get into it, research is something. See, the term research is something. It says that you have to search for things which is already there, right? You have to structure it in the way that is something understandable and make some decision out of it, whether it's good, bad, or something. And then the core is financial modeling. If you understand what research is, if you do work about it, I think you'll be there. But don't read up other stuff and just blurt it out. It has to be your thought process, is what I would say to youngsters.
oh, fantastic. I think you gave a trade secret of how one can actually get through equity research. I really appreciate this thought process of the youngsters who got there. They prepared models. They said, "Oh, can we discuss?" They didn't even ask for interviews, and it happened. Now, what's the typical career path in equity research? So you start as an analyst, then what? Manager? I'm not sure how this hierarchy works, and
All
then
right,
do you
so,
become
so
like
yeah.
overall head?
All
So
right. So first of
can
all,
you spend your lifetime?
typically no. So an analyst is an analyst, right? So even our HOR is also an analyst, right?
Oh,
Technically,
acha.
he's also an analyst. He's also an analyst. So he is registered as a research analyst as per SEBI regulation. First of all, so basically, the career path that people have is that you start as an associate working for a lead, then you become a sector lead. You graduate into a group of sectors if you are good enough, and then you have an overall view. You try and move towards the buy side. That's the first order. Or if you want to move towards the sell side, you graduate into a HOR because you have a view over more than one sectors or group of
Absolutely.
sectors, right? Then comes the buy side part of it. You work as a buy side analyst where you will not be assigned a sector. You'll have to assign group of sectors. So it will be 4, 5 sectors, 7 sectors, because there it's important is not to look at 80 companies. It's about 8 portfolio companies and their competitors and new ideas across sectors. That's how it works. And then from their sector buy side analyst, they transition to fund manager, and then there's this CIOs. Another way is to that you do research, you understand the sector pretty well, and you are so good at it that somebody from the sector recruits you as your strategy guy or the IR guy. That's where you research, and then you get into the corporate kind of a profile. So these are the things that
So just to give an example to the viewers, someone who would be spending like 10 years into metals and mining could end up as head of investor relations for a JSW Steel or a JSPL. So that could be a typical path. Okay.
yes.
And what about the other thing? So for example, I am a fresher. I could not break into equity research right after graduation from college. So I went into a pharma company, got a very good hang of plant accounts or maybe distributor channel financing or business finance. After 2-3 years, can I come and stake a claim that, hey, I know pharma sector very well. So you have just looked at the uh, broader balance sheet. I know it like from the SAP level where the data is generated. I know it from that level, a debit note, a credit note, how this entire value chain works. Do you give cognizance to that kind of an experience?
Not only we actually have also observed that it has happened even in our sectors like specifically, and this happens more so in a sector which requires in-depth knowledge. So with due respect to all these sectors, I think sectors like pharma or an oil and gas, or so for example metals, that requires a technicality of the process of manufacturing, the the different segments into it, the regulations into it, and this is quite different from a handy sectors, say for example where auto, or yes, you see look into tech, but or for FMCG or a consumer thing or a media, where the depth of the sector, you wouldn't know what is happening day to day, but in these things a lot of things are lot of things are required. So yes, in these sectors I have seen it has happened that those people who are from industries have come to the research part of it, the other way around also, but yes, they have come to research part and they've done pretty well. They have been sector specialists, and those are the ones who, with exposure to companies, they are the ones who could become a consultant, who could who've seen the both part of it. They've done the operations part of it. They've seen the investment part of it, and they are the big fit for the consultants.
Superb. I mean, so we have really thought about, so today, instead of staring at a blank wall after this interview, people know that if they really are passionate about equity research, here is a path A, B, C, D, maybe directly into equities, front-end equity, maybe through a KPO, maybe through industry experience. So there are many, many paths through which you can actually get into your dream world. So now, Bhupinder, as we head towards the end of this interview, my last two questions are more pointed towards your personal life. One, it's a stressful life. Definitely, you'll start at 8 a.m. in the morning. There is so much data that you analyze during the day. How do you unwind? Maybe your 2-year-old daughter would be.
Yes. I think for any person, professional, family is a very very good relaxant, if we can call it, because I think that's where you kind of switch off after a day work, specifically something after a stressful call, maybe, or after a wrong call, or after you can celebrate also after a good thing. So family is specifically for person like me. I have a daughter, so for me it's like 6 to 9 p.m is if I'm back home, then, or whenever I'm back home, I try and give 2 to 3 hours to her, and kind of unwind and kind of switch off, and so that mix is given by this.
What else do you
Of course,
do?
of course, apart from that, 2 3 things that we do apart for the mental and the physical well-being. First is meditation. I think uh, I was into it, and then I kind of discontinued. I have started again. So not in the form of the pure meditation that I did with Art of Living when I started off, but yes, I do yoga.
You do
The
Sudarshan Kriya?
meditation, not regularly. I used to be a regular, but I think for the past few years it's been a tough thing. But yes, I'm getting back to it. I'm getting back to meditation. That's one part of it. And second is working out. I think over the last 5 or 6 months, it has started. The gyms like Cult and all gives you the flexibility of going at any time, at any locations, and all those things are something which is
The
helping.
caveat here is we are not getting paid by Cult. It is just that the phenomenon is catching traction.
Yes,
So,
yes, and yeah. This is something that I would like to say. There's no advertisement of this kind. It worked for me. It can work for your neighborhood gym can work for you, and that can be great. I don't have it here, and this is Mumbai. You don't have a space to walk, so I
yeah.
think
And are most of your colleagues like obese or are they slim
yes,
and trim? Because equity
yes.
research is mostly desk job.
Sad news is, yes, most of us are obese. Most of the desk guys in India or globally are obese, and we can't help it. Yes, like I said, we've been, I think the intent has to come up from yourself. I think the early few years of your career, the focus is more on growing, focus is more on earning, and we forget the mental well-being or the physical well-being or the balance of the work and those things. But I think it is catching up. I think the youngsters are catching up. But this is just something that has to be, because it's a very very trend there, that we had few cases where people had back issues, few cases where people had this obesity and all those things, the BP and all those things. yes, it is a concern.
What does Bhupinder Tiwari do when he gets those 100% variable payouts, which he would have got so many times in his decades?
uh,
That's the beauty of the equity research career, right? As we were discussing, that it is.
I think variable payouts like you said are great. I don't know. I can't comment on the numbers of 100 and
No,
200, but
100%
yes,
or 80% or so, because in industry
yeah,
mostly it's like
but
10-12%,
but
right?
yes, but you got to understand the construct of the industry. It is such that this industry is the first one to be affected also when the bad things
Yeah,
comes. So the cuts
absolutely.
are also so sharp. The layoffs are very sharp. It can also happen that your sector is not a relevant sector, say for the next 4 or 5 years. So your sector experience kind of doesn't help you there. So you lose job and all those things. So the grind in terms of the
Yeah,
hard work that you do, in terms of the risk that you do, I think that's compensated by the pay structure. But of course, like I said, everything has a good and the bad part. Yes,
absolutely.
and yeah, and that's what we work for. So the money is, yes, it's
No,
one
because
of the
one would
motivations.
have seen the Wolves of the Wall Street. You would have seen that movie. That guy is an
Yeah.
equity research guy. He sells and he is into yachts and mansions.
Well, I think I can't comment about everybody. Yes, but there are few equity guys who are really good, who've done so well. I think they've turned into investors and all those things. There are equity guys you would appreciate, who started as a sell side analyst and now are renowned investors in their field.
Oh, is it? Oh,
So
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 that
they have
movie is
happened.
not just like fiction. That Wolves of the Wall Street. It is probably.
It happens to somebody who's working hard, somebody who's achieved, somebody whose right calls gave them a right leverage to move out, or the like you called good bonuses and all those right promotions and reaching the right companies and all those things. Yes, there are I think I can remember few uh, people who are there, and I think they have done pretty well, and they were equity analysts, they were sell side equity analysts. So that's there.
So success in equity markets is really very costly. I mean, you really need to give a lot, but yeah, it's really rewarding that ways. My final question to you, Bhupendra. What does Bhupendra at the age of 34 advise a Bhupendra at the age of 20?
That's a tough one, but I think uh, having lived this life and what I have become, then what I was, I think I would say that Bhupendra at 20 should understand that uh, family is one of the pillar of what you are. I think you have to understand that whatever you're doing, whatever you earn, wherever you go, family support keeps you going. They are the one who will stand by you. When by family also, I also say your close friend circle. They are the ones who will stand by you. It's very important to be with them. Say, for example, with age, you realize that the flip side of age is that you can lose people, and then that's why you'll have to treasure them well. So, for example, my father is 69, and I have to care for him, right? There's always the concern. So, for example, what I could do is that spend more time with him, be with him, the people who matter. So my daughter is something that she's a blessing for me. She's something who I
Yeah.
think gives me a positivity. My
What's her
friends who have
name?
been there with me,
What's her name?
her name's Adya.
Adhya. Okay. And your
Adya.
friends?
So Adya, yeah,
Adhya
and my
means?
friends. I think Adya
Adhya?
means the first power.
Okay. Wow. That's very nice.
So basically, I think you come from Calcutta. So there's this deity name Adya Peeth. There's a place called
Adhya
Adya
Pit.
Peeth.
Adhya Pit. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
So Adya Peeth is for Ma Durga's incarnation, and that stands for the first power. And she happened to be our first power, first daughter. So we named her.
Oh, and I've named my daughters as Dhwani and Khanak, both representing sound because the father loves
Yes,
speaking because he's always on YouTube.
and he's successful too.
No, no,
Trust
no.
me, I should mention. I think it's been my interview, but I should mention one thing that I have observed that the typical chartered accountants have relatively poor communication skills than, say, for example, MBA or the other professions that comes around. You have been an inspiration for the youth. I come across a lot of people here, the CA guys,
Oh, is
who
it?
consider you as mentor in Mumbai. So
Oh my God,
virtually you don't know that you are changing the lives of the people here. So I think that you have to give kudos to you. And I'm a follower of your LinkedIn post. You must have been seeing the likes
yeah,
and the comments that I give, and I believe that we need to give it back to the youngsters. This is a era where we are so connected, so we have to utilize it well and inform them well, right?
absolutely. And your friends, what about them?
Okay.
How?
Uh,
Yes, they
oh,
play a role
so
in your
we
life.
yes, yes. So basically, I have three school friends, and that's also I'll tell you everybody, the youngsters that you say that during the course of the time we come across a lot of friends. I think you'll have a school friend, then college friend, then work friends, and then all those new friends and acquaintances. But it's the old school friends who have been there through you, who has
Thick
seen the
and
worst
thin.
part of you. Yes, yes. So for example, they are the ones where you can just give a call. You don't even have to think. You don't have to that do that usual or bol yaar kya chal raha hai and all those things. You can get to the point with them. You can crib, you can cry, you can smile, and those guys will not even think about, will not judge you. So when you get into the corporate life, it's very cutthroat. To the all the young guys, it will be cutthroat competition. Your friends, your colleagues will be vying for that same rating that you are thinking you might get it, right? But your friends, yeah, they'll love you. They for you, you are that same goofy guy who they're going to pull your leg and all those things. So yes, friendship. I think one of my friend happens to be your
Cousin, yes,
rel-
Vishal. How can I forget that? Yeah, he's
so
my.
so so you, so that's what it is. You learn from them. I think it's very difficult. And friendship, best thing about friendship that I tell you, and you also discussed once, is that you kind of like what is very inconsistent about them. So
Yes.
for example, they become your friend because of their that inconsistencies. Somebody who jo muffat hoga, somebody who's very very good in finance, and you don't like that finance part of, but you know that you're jealous of it because he's so good at it. Right? So that's those are the things. Somebody who's a very matlab ki jugadu kind of a friend. So you
Yeah,
need it because they would do it anything for you at whenever you call it. So friendship is very important. I think you have to stick to the ones who you have spent time with you in the early part of the things, and that's why I said, and I always believe that when we look at friendship, it has to be seen away from those professional things that we come
yeah, the
across.
give and take though is there always. So you
Yes,
rightly said, and you track telecom also. So Airtel has this wonderful ad, हर एक friend जरूरी होता है.
yes, yes. बट वो कुछ जो फ्रेंड होते हैं वो जरूरी फ्रेंड्स उनके साथ टच रहना जरूरी होता है.
Absolutely. So thank
Yeah.
you so much, Bhupendra, for coming on the show. I'm honored, and it is news to me that if people in Mumbai are also following me, I mean, it is
No,
good.
you are very famous. You're very famous. I
Thank
think
you.
more than 50,000 subscribers on your YouTube page is something which shows. I think, and you have a huge market share into the youth, motivational segment. And let me tell you, keep doing this good job, and keep. I also look at the interviews that you have done in the recent times. My sincere, I think what we are talking right now is only about equity research. You have whole gamut of activities, whole gamut of the world that you've covered in your interviews. I think any youngster should look into those things.
All thanks to wonderful people like you who consent. So thank you everyone, and viewers, please like
Thank you.
it and share it with ones. We've had a very comprehensive coverage of equity research. I'm sure you'll never get it so commonly across the internet. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you.